In a quiet neighborhood, a devoted daughter named Emily had just welcomed her elderly father, Mr. Thompson, into her home. He had recently moved in to recover from health issues, needing extra care and support. Emily was determined to make his golden years comfortable and happy. However, their peaceful life was about to take a turbulent turn. Karen, the ruthless president of the Homeowners Association, HOA, prided herself on strict adherence to the community rules. Known for her stern demeanor, she made it clear that she would not tolerate any deviations from the regulations. When she noticed Mr. Thompson living with Emily, she immediately declared him an unauthorized tenant. This label sent shockwaves through the family as Karen demanded that he either be removed or face hefty fines. Emily felt her heart race with frustration and anger. Her father had always been a kind and gentle man, deserving of respect and care at this stage of his life. Little did Karen know that her actions would spark a chain of events that would challenge her authority and change the community forever. As word spread through the neighborhood, tension began to simmer. Karen, fueled by her desire for control over the community, couldn't tolerate what she saw as a blatant disregard for the rules. She marched over to Emily's house one sunny afternoon, her expression stern and unyielding. With a pointed finger and a harsh voice, she declared, "Your father is an unauthorized tenant. He cannot stay here without proper approval." Emily felt her heart sink. How could the woman who claimed to protect their home be so cruel? Neighbors began to peek through their windows, whispering and exchanging glances as the confrontation unfolded. Some residents supported Emily, others allowed fear of Karen's authority to keep them silent. Karen continued her tirade, threatening Emily with hefty fines and possible eviction if her father didn't leave immediately. The atmosphere crackled with unease as Karen's words echoed in the air. This personal attack on their family ignited a fire within Emily. Instead of shrinking back in fear, she resolved to stand up for her father and fight against Karen's tyrannical ways, aware that they were far from alone in this battle against unfairness. Karen's voice was sharp as she laid down her demands, making it clear that there would be no room for negotiation. "Your father must leave this house immediately, or I will impose a fine of $500 each month until he does," she proclaimed, her eyes narrowing with authority. The threat hung heavy in the air, and Emily could feel her heart racing as fear gripped her. Karen continued without a hint of compassion, insisting that the rules were absolute and meant to protect the community. "HOA regulations are in place for a reason," she reiterated coldly. Whether Mr. Thompson was recovering from health issues seemed irrelevant to Karen, all she saw was a violation of her precious rules. As the days passed, Emily felt overwhelmed by Karen's relentless pursuit of control. She shared Karen's demands with her neighbors, who were equally outraged yet fearful of speaking up. Some whispered that Karen had a history of bullying residents, using her position to intimidate anyone who dared challenge her. This only fueled Emily's determination. She knew that standing up against Karen would not just benefit her father but also help restore fairness in the community. Emily sat in her living room, her heart heavy with anger and frustration. The weight of Karen's threats felt unbearable, and she couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness. How could someone be so cruel? She glanced at her father, who was resting in his favorite chair, a soft smile on his face despite the turmoil surrounding them. It broke Emily's heart to think of him being forced out during such a vulnerable time. But as she watched him, determination ignited within her. Emily realized she couldn't let Karen's bullying win. "My dad deserves to feel safe and comfortable here," she thought fiercely. With each passing moment, her resolve grew stronger. She decided to take action and rallied her thoughts to form a plan. Reaching out to supportive neighbors, Emily gathered their stories and experiences with Karen's tyranny. Together, they formed a united front, ready to confront the HOA president's unjust demands. This wasn't just about her father anymore, it was about standing up for everyone in the community who had felt oppressed by Karen's reign. Fueled by love for her father and a newfound sense of justice, Emily prepared to fight back for what was rightfully theirs. With a newfound sense of purpose, Emily dove into researching the HOA bylaws alongside her father. They piled up documents and scoured through pages filled with rules and policies. The more they read, the more they unearthed a troubling pattern of Karen's misconduct. They discovered instances where she had imposed unfair fines on families for minor infractions, often without proper justification. As Emily flipped through each section, her heart raced with excitement and disbelief. It wasn't long before they found several clauses where Karen had violated HOA regulations herself, such as failing to send out required notices before imposing penalties and treating residents with disrespect during meetings. Each violation they noted felt like a building block for their defense against her tyranny. Every time Emily uncovered something new, it strengthened her belief that they could take a stand against Karen's leadership. She shared the findings with supportive neighbors, rallying even more community members to join their cause. Their plan was taking shape. Armed with evidence of Karen's wrongdoings, the family and its allies were poised to challenge her authority and restore fairness in their neighborhood once and for all. With each new discovery about Karen's violations, Emily's determination only grew stronger. She organized a meeting in her backyard, inviting neighbors who shared their frustrations about the HOA president's harsh tactics. As they gathered around picnic tables, the air buzzed with a mix of hope and resolve. Emily presented the evidence they had compiled, displaying copies of the bylaws and highlighting specific infractions. Neighbors listened intently, their faces lighting up with recognition as they recalled their own experiences with Karen's unfair fines and disrespectful behavior. Together, they brainstormed strategies to confront Karen at the upcoming HOA meeting. Emily encouraged everyone to share their stories, documenting each account to strengthen their collective case. They worked late into the night, printing flyers and gathering signatures for support. The sense of community blossomed as more residents joined their cause, realizing they were not alone in their battles against Karen's oppressive rule. As the meeting day approached, excitement mingled with nervousness. Emily felt empowered by the unity around her and knew that together, they could challenge Karen's authority. With hearts full of hope, they prepared to make their voices heard for the sake of fairness and justice in their neighborhood. The day of the community meeting arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with tension. Residents shuffled into the room, their expressions a mix of anxiety and determination. Emily could feel the weight of their collective frustration as they took their seats, whispering amongst themselves about what was at stake. The air was thick with anticipation, and everyone sensed that this gathering could change the dynamics of their neighborhood. At the front of the room, Karen stood poised and confident, a stark contrast to the nervous crowd. She flashed a tight smile, but her eyes betrayed her irritation at having to face an uprising against her authority. As the meeting commenced, she maintained her usual rigidity, laying out an agenda that barely scratched the surface of the issues at hand. Emily watched as neighbors began to speak up, their voices rising with passion as they shared personal stories of Karen's oppressive tactics. Some recounted unfair fines while others described how they felt intimidated by her presence at meetings. It was clear that emotions were running high on both sides as the discussion grew heated. Emily took a deep breath, ready to present their evidence, knowing that this was just the beginning of a significant showdown for justice in their community. With her heart pounding, Emily stood up, taking a deep breath to steady herself as all eyes turned to her. She felt the weight of her neighbors' hopes resting on her shoulders. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice strong yet emotional. "I stand here not just for my father, but for everyone who has been affected by Karen's actions." As she spoke, Emily detailed the violations they had uncovered, highlighting specific instances of unfair fines that Karen had imposed without justification. "These rules are meant to protect us, not to intimidate and bully," she exclaimed, her passion igniting a spark among the crowd. Emily shared stories from other residents who had faced similar treatment, illustrating a pattern of abuse that could no longer be ignored. The audience listened intently, nodding in agreement as she rallied support. "We deserve a community where everyone feels safe and respected," she continued. "It's time for us to stand together against tyranny." As she finished, applause erupted from her neighbors, their voices uniting in support of her cause. Emily could see their determination mirrored in their faces, knowing they were ready to take a stand against Karen's oppressive rule. As Emily's powerful speech concluded, Karen felt the pressure mounting against her. For the first time, she realized how discontented the community had become. When it was her turn to speak, she squared her shoulders and tried to find her footing but stumbled over her words. "This is all exaggerated," she insisted, her voice shaky. "The rules are in place for a reason, they protect our property values." Yet Karen's attempts to downplay the evidence fell flat as murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Emily's neighbors began to recount their experiences, stories of arbitrary fines and disrespectful treatment at Karen's hands. Each account chipped away at Karen's confidence, revealing a growing dissatisfaction with her leadership. Desperation crept into Karen's defense as she struggled to counter their claims. "I've always enforced the rules fairly," she exclaimed, but her words lacked conviction. The community members had united in their resolve, refusing to accept her justifications any longer. It became clear that they were no longer afraid of her authority. As they challenged her assertions one after another, the tide had undoubtedly turned against Karen, leaving her increasingly isolated in the face of growing opposition. The tension in the room reached its peak as the community prepared for the vote on Karen's presidency. Each resident was given a slip of paper, and whispers of concern fluttered around the room. Emily's heart raced as she observed the faces of her neighbors, some appearing anxious while others wore determined expressions. This vote was more than just about one person, it represented their collective stand against years of oppression. As the ballots were collected, the palpable uncertainty filled the air. People exchanged nervous glances, knowing this decision would affect their lives moving forward. Emily took a deep breath, recalling all the support she had gathered and the courage everyone had shown in confronting Karen. Moments later, the HOA board began to tally the votes. The silence was deafening as they counted each one aloud, and anticipation mounted with every announcement. 2, 4, 6. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the board members faced the crowd, their expressions grim. "Karen, you have lost the confidence of this community," one of them declared. A wave of applause erupted, drowning out Karen's shocked expression, a moment of triumph for Emily and her neighbors as they embraced newfound hope for a fairer future. As the applause echoed through the room, Karen stood frozen, her face pale and her expression a mix of shock and disbelief. The reality of her defeat crashed over her like a wave as she processed that the community she had once controlled had turned against her. The board members exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable but resolute in their decision. "Karen, we're sorry, but you must resign as president effective immediately," one board member stated gently but firmly. The community erupted into cheers, but Karen felt the weight of humiliation settle in her chest. She had prided herself on being a strong leader, but now she was forced to face the consequences of her actions. With a shaky breath, she gathered her things, casting a lingering look at the residents who had once feared her. Now they were celebrating a victory for justice. As she walked out, whispers followed her, some reflecting sympathy while others expressed relief that her reign of control had ended. In that moment, Emily felt a swell of pride for her community. They had united against unfair leadership and won. With Karen gone, there was hope for a new beginning. Mr. Thompson smiled broadly, feeling proud that he could now step into a new role on the board, ready to help guide their neighborhood towards a brighter future. With Karen's resignation, the atmosphere in the room shifted from tension to excitement as residents eagerly anticipated the next steps. Knowing the board was now open, Emily felt a surge of confidence and hope for their community. "I'd like to nominate Mr. Thompson for the board," she announced, her voice steady and clear. Gasps of surprise filled the room, but quickly turned into supportive murmurs. Mr. Thompson, still adjusting to his new role as an active participant in the community, looked at his daughter with pride and gratitude. He had always cared deeply about their neighborhood and believed he could contribute positively. As he stepped forward to accept the nomination, Emily spoke passionately about her father's integrity and commitment to fairness, emphasizing that he would treat every resident with respect. The residents listened carefully and soon began to nod in agreement. With an overwhelming show of hands, Mr. Thompson was elected to take over Karen's position on the board. Cheers erupted around the room as people embraced one another, relieved and hopeful for the new direction their community was taking. As Mr. Thompson took his seat at the front, he promised everyone present that he would prioritize unity and fairness in all decisions moving forward, a welcome change for a neighborhood eager for healing and respect. As the dust settled from the recent upheaval, the community began to reflect on the strength they had discovered in standing together. Emily walked through the neighborhood, witnessing neighbors who had once felt divided now chatting and laughing together, united by their shared victory over unfair leadership. The sense of camaraderie was palpable, and there was a renewed spirit of cooperation among them. Mr. Thompson, now on the board, quickly moved to establish open lines of communication with all residents. His commitment to fairness and respect inspired others to voice their ideas and concerns without fear. No longer were they passive participants in their community, they became active contributors, working collectively for its betterment. Emily felt a profound sense of hope as she realized that standing up for what was right had not only changed their leadership but also transformed their relationships with one another. The fight against injustice had strengthened ties among neighbors, fostering a sense of belonging and accountability within the community. With Mr. Thompson at the helm, they looked forward to a brighter future, one where each resident's voice mattered, and mutual respect flourished. Together, they had set an example, that when people unite for a common cause, positive change is not just possible, it is inevitable.